Female villains are excellent. When I was asked to do this one villainous scene, there were so many amazing lines and scenes from female villains that I thought would be excellent to discuss.
I shall destroy your happiness, if it is the last thing I do.
Oh, how I've missed you. Do you know how boring Tartarus can be? Same old torture every day, every day.
Why, it's Maleficent.
But when I truly searched my spirit, I knew that there was only one female villain who I truly wanted to explore.
Face me, human, if you dare.
Gargoyles is the Walt Disney animated television series created by Greg Weisman and Frank Parr that ran from 1994 to 1997. It told the story of a clan of gargoyles, creatures that are stone by day, warriors by night, who in the 10th century were betrayed by their human allies and suffered near genocide. Those who survived were put under a spell that would keep them in their stone-like state until their castle, Castle Wevered, was raised above the clouds. In the 1990s, New York billionaire genius named David Xanatos raises the castle above his New York City skyscraper, breaking the curse, and the gargoyles are brought back to life, led by Goliath and aided by NYPD detective Elisa Maza as they adjust to this new world. And it's alright, even though we're still ACAB, Elisa is like, you know, grade A indigenous black rep, so we stan her even though we hate that she's part of the system. The series was noted and lauded for its dark tone, its Shakespearean homages, complex characters, storylines, and Star Trek voice cast. I mean, like, all of the greats. While sporting many villains, antagonists throughout the series, the most compelling, without a doubt, in my opinion, is Demona.
I have a name too, Goliath. The humans gave it to me long ago. You should know it before you die. I am Demona.
Demona is the former mate to Goliath, the leader of the New York Gargoyles clan. Demona, back in the 10th century, grew to hate humanity for their discrimination and bigotry towards her kind. She eventually teamed up with the captain of the guards, who was an ally to them, in order to give information to the Vikings and allow them to take over the castle. However, the issue was that Demona was supposed to convince Goliath and the other gargoyles to get away from the castle. Demona failed to do so because Goliath was loyal to the humans for some reason, and therefore she didn't hold up her part of the bargain, and the clan ends up getting slaughtered during the daylight by the Vikings. When Goliath returns the next day along with Hudson, he was devastated to see the murder of his almost entire clan, which included who he believed to be his mate, Demona. In reality, Demona did manage to escape and hid, with the intent of returning to Goliath once things had calmed down. However, she returns to find the 6 survivors, including Goliath, under the sleep curse as stone. This breaks her heart and begins the downward spiral in Demona's life of loneliness and pain and revenge.
Dawn at night? How can this be? Oh, my love. What have they done to you?
In the 4-parter City of Stone, our heroes have to get a code from Demona in order to undo her turning all of humanity into stone and her murdering many people. And throughout this 4-parter, we get insight into Demona's life as we go into her backstory and realize what has brought her up to this point. Throughout this 4-parter, we see Demona's backstory leading up to the events of the show, and we get a lot of insight into her emotional state of mind. And while being confronted by Goliath and the Weird Sisters, she reveals something very visceral about herself, her motivations, and what she feels about the consequences of her actions.
Must give them the code.
I will have vengeance for the betrayal of my clan. Vengeance for my pain.
But who betrayed your clan? And who caused this pain?
The Vikings destroyed my clan.
Who betrayed the castle to the Vikings?
The hunter hunted us down.
Who created the hunter?
Canmore destroyed the last of us.
Who betrayed Macbeth to Canmore?
Your thirst for vengeance has only created more sorrow. End the cycle, Demona. Give us the code.
The access code is alone.
The access code is alone is one of the most excellent scenes in Gargoyles because it brings a lot of humanity to Demona, and it is informed by what we have seen her go through, and it is the kind of empathy that allows us as the audience to know that while Demona is absolutely wrong for her actions, to understand why she makes these choices. And also that Demona herself knows deep down that she is responsible in many ways for the harm she has caused to herself. But her inability to properly deal with this has sent her down a path of murder, revenge, and isolation from the very people she wants to protect and love. This is the fatal flaw that makes her a villain. And I think it is worth discussing how her villainy is constructed because it is very much emblematic of the 90s and early 2000s way of dealing with racism through the fantastical racism tropes. Due to the trauma of losing everyone she's ever loved, Demona is paranoid and afraid of not being able to protect her kind. This leads her to make rash, anxious decisions as highlighted in her chaotic relationship to Macbeth, which we see in the City of Stone quartet? And yes, it is that Macbeth from Shakespeare. Through flashbacks, we see that Demona meets a young Macbeth and works with him to defeat Duncan to become king, a la just like in the Shakespearean story. They are bound together through a spell by the Weird Sisters, which gives Demona back her youth and makes her, and they end up being allies with each other to the point where Macbeth is the one who actually gives Demona her name. Since gargoyles don't really have names, but she was called the Angel of the Night by Goliath for some time. But now she's Demona because symbolism.
Humans will learn to respect you.
I would rather they feared me.
They'll do that too. Demona.
Demona. I like the sound of that.
I hereby declare Demona my primary advisor.
And Demona and Macbeth have a really good relationship. But unfortunately, because of her experience with humans, Demona's trust is very fragile. And when she hears Macbeth consider betraying her to win support from the English, who are still discriminating against gargoyles, she is afraid that this is going to come to pass, and she ends up betraying Macbeth to Duncan's son Claymore and the English armies. Claymore, however, then betrays her and kills the rest of her clan, leaving her alone again and becoming the last living gargoyle in Scotland. And eventually she decides to leave and is deeply, deeply damaged by the situation and will not trust or align herself with another human for 1,000 years when she finally teams up with Xanatos to undo the curse that, you know, helps release Goliath and Bronx and Brooklyn and Hudson and all of them folk. And during the time in this 1,000 years, she becomes a rich woman who doing sorcery, all kinds of witchcraft crafts. And honestly, her backstory is really interesting because you could argue that throughout her entire transformation, she becomes more human than gargoyle, managing to understand capitalism and survives all of that. And ultimately what we see with Demona is that her desire to survive extinction leads her to very dark, visceral paths in life. And of course, when the gargoyles awaken, Goliath and all of them, they do not align with Demona. They actually want to team up with humanity. And then Elisa comes and she's like, you're too close to my man, sis. You're too close to my man, sis. And she becomes very vindictive and has a personal grudge against Elisa because she's like, that's my man though. I ship Elisa and Goliath because it's healthy, but I do want Demona to be happy because, hello, that's my queen. Demona's hatred towards humans is how she has mentally decided is the only way that she can survive, and so it is based on revenge, but she sees it as the only way to protect herself and her race. Greg Wiseman has hinted through interviews that eventually Demona will have some sort of epiphany, learn that she's responsible for her own misery, and undergo some sort of like psychological breakdown because of it. He says, go a little mad, which I'm like, would rather she just be evil to death, girl. Would rather she just be evil till she die. The thing that has always attracted me to Demona is the fact that I think that she has very genuine reasons to be resentful and angry towards humanity. And like, it's hard to think otherwise. You know, rewatching the first episodes, which give kind of the backstory intro to the Gargoyle Society in Scotland, seeing how the humans treat the gargoyles, it is very hard for me as a Black woman to not be on Demona's side. In fact, my biggest issue with Gargoyles upon rewatching it is how Professor Exy Goliath is about kind of just, you know, being good and wanting to work with the humans and like, one day they'll understand. It's like, but you're the one who's saving them. You're risking your life for these people because they're on your land. They colonized your castle. You still live there, so you helping them because you're trying to keep the property values up. Like, I don't understand how this is on you, my bro. And just like with Professor X and Magneto, as the years increase, it becomes harder and harder not to believe that Magneto was right. All of the good gargoyles are overall not okay with their treatment, but they do not push back in the same way. And the ones who do push back are often treated with a sense of like, you have to be patient. And this is an underlying subtext that is always in the fantastical racism genre, that despite all of the things that Demona has faced, she isn't allowed to be angry and resentful because it's supposed to be like, well, it's her fault for like going to this level. But it's like, when is humanity gonna be held responsible for being racist? And I think what makes Demona also compelling is that you can tell that she has this very deep desire to be loved, you know, especially by her daughter with Goliath named Angela, which I'm like, Angela. Demona. Also, upon my rewatch, I kept going back to Demona's foundational sin, being that she betrayed her clan.
The plan was perfect.
Plan?
It would have succeeded.
What plan?
I made a bargain with the captain. I was to get us all out of the castle so that the Vikings could sack it.
What?
It would have worked. And after the humans were gone, we would have had the castle all to ourselves. But you ruined it. You had to protect the humans.
But why did you do it?
You can ask me that. After how they treated us, they had to pay. All humanity has to pay for what they did to our kind.
There is good and evil in all of us, human and gargoyle alike. You should know that more than anyone. Don't you see? None of this would have happened if it weren't for you.
Don't say that!
Okay, not to villain sim, but fuck the humans, okay? She and her man trying to go downstairs and get some juice, trying to just go downstairs in their own house, and the humans want to act like they don't know who just saved their lives. I'm like, I'm sorry, you need to show some respect when we come through the door. You would have lost. You would have gotten beat up and eaten up by these Vikings. All your shit would have been pillaged if me and my man didn't come down from our thing at the end of the night and come here and save y'all lives. So when I want to come downstairs and get some juice, get some food, and me and my people want to come out here and have some dinner, don't look at me. And then Goliath want to just be like bowing and smiling and shit. I'm just like, I don't like that.
Goliath, we named you well, it seems. You are as good a soldier as the Philistine giant who fought David.
You do well to remember, Captain, that the biblical Goliath was also a bully and a savage.
And I checked the writer's room and I didn't really see any writers of color in general, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a very assimilist mentality, in my opinion, to promote the idea that you always have to rise above it, that in the face of bigotry, you have to smile and bow and be like, oh, it's so funny, you think I'm gonna be a savage, but I'm really gonna just be charming and bow. Like, no, fuck them, fuck them, you know? It's like, y'all were about to get got before Goliath came here. Y'all better act different. Act different when we come into the streets. It's a frustrating thing to watch and have that be part of Demona's villain backstory because I just fundamentally have more empathy for her. You know, it's something that I felt when I would watch the X-Men movies. I knew I wasn't supposed to identify with Magneto because like I'm the vulnerable human, but I did. Especially when the first X-Men film opens with a young, you know, Eric being brought into a concentration camp, emphasizing the harm that humans do to each other. Why would I not understand as a marginalized person, as a descendant of slavery, that like humans are the worst enemy to other people and be suspect about their ability to ever evolve? So the older I get, it's just harder for me not to identify with the paranoia and rage that Demona has, even though I think obviously she goes over the line when she kills people, innocent people. But I also think I understand why she becomes that way, because I understand how being oppressed doesn't teach you how to be a good person. It teaches you how to be an oppressor, and that is what Demona is now in response to discrimination. In an interview with the AV Club, Demona's voice actress, Star Trek alumni Melina, talked about how Demona was originally going to be a clan leader of the Gargoyles named Dakota, and eventually became an antagonist on the show. Right, exactly. She was kind of the only one of the Gargoyles who hung on to what the humans had done to the Gargoyles. She was the one that was like the walking history of pain and betrayal. On a certain level, I think she represented, and I might be getting too esoteric here, but I think she represented someone like Native Americans or the First Nations people up in Canada or Aboriginals in Australia, whose lives and lands and everything was destroyed by others who came in, as there were still people in those communities who were fighting for their equality and their rights. So she just chose not really the smartest way to do it, but like I said, it came from a place of truth for her. And I think that is very true. And I think it also says a lot about the way that we treat these issues, that Demona, the person who viscerally carries that pain, that experience of 1,000 years of having this very chaotic relationship with humanity, is the one who ends up becoming the villain, the bad gargoyle, the bad one, and that her feelings are never treated with any sort of real empathy. As if validating the pain that she feels means that her hatred of humans is okay. It's not, but she has a right to be mad. So that's why when the weird sisters kind of talk to her, it's like, well, who did this and who did that? I'm like, the humans started it. Like, they were racist first. And then she was like, I will meet energy. So of course she's gonna believe that Macbeth would willingly betray her and her people to the English. So of course she's gonna think that way. And of course she's ultimately going to think that the Gargoyles are gonna side with her over humanity, because humanity has not accepted them. Why should they fight? Why should they work? Why should they have to strive to be treated as living creatures when that's what they are? Humanity mistreats them. We live in a world where humans don't like other humans. We are not all going to start having a utopian society. And honestly, if you want a story that makes me believe in the togetherness ever after stuff, watch Kipo and the Age of the Wonder Beast, because that one I did feel at the end. But that was work, and that was the core of the story, whereas with Gargoyles there's a lot of other things going on. So yes, I understand Demona. I do believe in City of Stone, where she ends up breaking, shattering an untold number of humans. It is the line in the sand that she crosses so blatantly and cruelly. She is wrong. No one is saying that she is right. But what makes Demona rootable is that she is well written. You don't have to agree with her. You fundamentally and morally can't in the murder level, but you do understand it. You understand that the hatred that she has is the only thing keeping her afloat. So she has to hate because it makes being alone worth it. It makes her being the survivor worth it. It makes losing the love of her life, her daughter, her people, and her identity worth it. And I think that's what makes her an interesting character and a fantastic villain, because at the heart of it, when you look at Demona, you look at her motivation, you look at her anger, where it comes from. It's fed by something deep. It is fed by something more than just money or power. It is fueled by the deepest kind of pain. So yeah, I love Demona, and I think Demona is Alone is one of the best scenes that Gargoyles has ever done. And it's an amazing show in general. If you've never checked it out, it's on Disney+. Don't watch season 3. Demona probably radicalized me along with Magneto, but you know what? It's fine. She got points. When the Gargoyles come into the house, they should have had their doors open. They should have been like, Goliath, thank you so much. You want a foot rub? You want this? You want some chicken boo? Don't be rude. Don't be rude to people saving your life from the Vikings. Except Lisa Mazza, excellence. She can come. Everyone else, get the hell out.